Which is the worst for emissions? Drilling, which is worse for emissions? Drilling or production of water?
Compressor stations, bar none. Compressor stations are the worst, because at a compressor station for a gas stream, as they're compressing the gas, liquids drop out. Liquids will drop out at atmospheric pressure, and the liquids, the condensate, is where your benzene concentrates, where you're really, all your zenes and enes, all those, anything ends in those are bad. And when they concentrate in the condensate, and they will release from that, and that is your biggest issue. It releases from all of them. No doubt about it, from your waste pits, from your what they call reserve pits, where the water as you're drilling and they'll leave it out in that open pit, let some of it evaporate or whatever. It's releasing VOXs also. It's everywhere, but especially the compressor stations, because it's so concentrated right there.
I know you noticed out there on I-35 they have a well out there. Now they just have the compressor stations, and where they have the pit. I don't know if the pit was lined or not. That's another problem, because if it's not lined, things can percolate down into the soil. But where they had that pit, nothing's growing. And all around it, you know, things are were growing and green, and now it's still black. And now we see a line of trees that are 70, 80, well, at least 80 years old, across the highway, along the highway now, at the base of Sandbass Hill, dying. And we're not sure why. Well, nobody's checking it out.
Well, I was just going to tell you, I had another test done at my farm about 2 weeks ago, and it was during the drilling of the Chesapeake well. And Jeff's right, the compressor stations are the worst. Then fracking is supposed to be the second worst, and drilling is supposed to be relatively innocuous. I got this test result back yesterday. The benzene at my house was 62.4 parts per billion. That's about 44 times higher than the long-term ESL, and it's over the short-term ESL. The TCEQ raised recently, by the way, because the ethyl benzene, 64.7, toluene, 59.4, 1, 2, and 4 trimethyl benzene, 25.3, total petroleum hydrocarbons, 1,410, MMP xylenes, 143, carbon disulfide, 18.1, dimethyl disulfide. I mean, it goes on and on and on. And this is just from drilling, the most innocuous, supposedly, of the processes.
Yeah. There are a ton of emissions that come from drilling, from flaring, from vents. The entire process, especially when the drilling happens and then it's allowed to outgas for 3 days. You know, if there's not a pipeline in place and they're not going to do the green completion and they're not going to cap it, well then all those emissions, whatever will be being gathered, is just freely flowing into the atmosphere, and that is an extremely toxic process as well.
And most of these chemicals are colorless, odorless, tasteless.
Oh yeah, most of it.
Smell them. You can definitely smell some of them. Like
benzene's aromatic. It's sweet, almost a sweet smell.
Yeah, but then it gets mixed
But it
with everything
stinks.
else, right?
Yeah.
At the compression stations, they have these things called dehydration units, and that removes all of the impurities. And we have 3 of those in dish, and I think they've added tremendously to the zenes into our air quality. So and they smell absolutely horrible. The glycol dehydration unit just smell absolutely horrible.
I understand that TSEC did an inventory, required the industry to do an inventory of all its equipment in gas drilling. And we haven't heard what the results were, but they were supposed to be letting us know how much each type of equipment emits. Did anybody
They're
know
in the
that?
process of doing it.
Okay.
I don't think that was really for tell us how much it's emitting.
Right.
That was for the TCEQ to try and get up to speed on what kind of equipment's out there.
Yeah.
It's an initial stage inventory.
Yeah, but there is another one that they're doing. ERG is doing another inventory for them to go ahead and look at what the emissions are. But part of that was they had to know what was out there before they could.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, I would encourage anybody, if you can afford it, do your own testing. If you have one of these wells near your house, test them. Get somebody out there to test them. Air canister is the easiest thing in the world. You can go pick them up, call me, I'll give you the name of the lab in Plano. You can go pick the canister up. You set it out in your yard or whatever. It costs about
costs about $500 to do, but if you can afford it, you're doing everybody a favor, because everybody around you is going to benefit from that. And I like to think that every time I set one of these canisters out, that I'm TCEQ and the Railroad Commission, sorry, their worst nightmare, because I am a private citizen that's out there testing, and if we get enough of us out there doing that, they have to listen. My argument from the beginning is, you can stand up and rant and rave and have emotional reactions to this all day long, but until you put a body of scientific evidence that they simply cannot hide behind any longer, because it's too much, it's too overwhelming, that's the only way change is going to come.